Welcome to the Model Health Show. This is fitness and nutrition expert Shawn Stevenson, here with my amazing co-host and producer, Jade Harrell. What's up, Jade?
What's up, Shawn?
How are you today?
Today, I am phenomenal.
Phenomenal.
Right?
We need some dap on that one. I love that. Just go ahead and break it down, though, anyways. What does that mean?
So, living the model health life has me feeling phenomenal.
Love it. Respect.
Respect.
Awesome. Well, I hope everybody's doing phenomenal today as well. We've got an incredible show lined up for you guys. And wow, we've got a legend in the house, for this episode. And somebody's making some real big moves and just helping to get this information to the public at large, and he just kind of refreshed me on an important point that you guys listening, we're in a very special class. We're in the minority of people who are really aware of this type of information and making big changes to our own lives and being an influence in the lives of our families. But there's so many other people that have no idea about this stuff, and they're eating an Egg McMuffin right now. At this very right. You get two for $2. Right, 2 for $2.
I don't know why I know.
Because of the media.
I've been redeemed.
The media. But wow, so making a big impact. And today we're going to talk about the difference between weight loss and fat loss, which is a really important distinction. We're going to be talking about just overall weight loss strategies, smart weight loss strategies in the first place, and it's just going to be a great time. So sit tight for that. First, I want to give a huge shout out to our show sponsor, onnit.com. Head over to onnit.com/model, and you're going to get 10% off all of your health and human performance supplements. Huge fans of the Hemp Force protein.
Good stuff.
Albumin. And what was the squeezing?
Okay,
it's a soft globular protein. We're talking about edestin. Always doing the squeezy thing.
Right.
So edestin and albumin, these are two really soft globular bioavailable proteins that really have a great affinity towards the human body. And you're a protein machine, so you got to get those proteins in. Minus just guzzling egg whites. That's not the best way to go about it. It's silly pants.
Yeah.
Huge fan also of the krill oil. Get your DHA, EPA. Those essential fatty acids for all of your cell membranes, your nervous system, your brain. It's important stuff. All right, so head over and check them out. onnit.com/model for 10% off. Now, let's go ahead and get into the iTunes review of the week.
Here's where we shine. 5 stars. This says, hands down, the best health and fitness podcast in history by JB Franchise. I stumbled upon this podcast when researching the paleo lifestyle last year when I saw LeBron James get ripped and shredded. Talk about lightning in a bottle. This is the most informative podcast I've ever listened to. Shawn and Jade bring the good vibes and vast amount of knowledge with each and every episode. I've laughed listening to this podcast from Shawn and Jade's conversations. I've cried listening to this podcast, listening to past guests speak about their experiences suffering from bulimia. I've learned more listening to this podcast through several topics that Shawn and Jade bring to our attention. And I can honestly say, Shawn, you have changed my life, brother. If I had the option to go to a Beyonce and Jay-Z concert or listen to Shawn speak at a seminar, I'm choosing Mr. Stevenson each and every time. Thanks for always replying to my Instagram posts. It makes my day that much brighter. You and Jade have a gift, and I receive it every time I listen to your podcast. Please keep doing what you're doing. You guys are shining out there in St. Louis. You are my hero, bro. I want your autograph, Johnny Franchise.
I don't even know what to say. That is remarkable.
Yeah, it's
wow.
a pretty big deal, right?
Thank you. I'm bigger than Beyonce.
That means you could do the halftime show.
No, thank you. I want no part of that. But wow, thank you so much for leaving that review, man. I truly appreciate it. And guys, holler at me on Instagram. I'm at Shawn Model. I think it's my official year on Instagram now, minus my kids being on there, my teenagers for like 5 years.
So are you a believer now?
Yeah, I'm definitely a believer. And so definitely check me out there. And wow, thank you for leaving the reviews on iTunes, guys. It means the world to me. And shout out to you, Mr. Franchise. I appreciate you, man. All right, so guys, one quick note here before we get into our topic. Sleep Smarter. Head over to sleepsmarterbook.com. The nationwide release is happening March 15th. And, of course, you could snatch the book up online and go and pre-order your copy today to get access. Copies. To get access to some incredible bonuses. And we're not giving away some flimsy PDF of, like, how to tie a knot. Just random stuff that has nothing to do with sleeping. We're giving away real, tangible supplements. We're giving away free food from Thrive Market, a $25 gift card just for even buying one copy of the book. But getting the book bundles, getting some copies for your friends and family, the people you care about, or people who you want to get their act together. It's just going to be really beneficial for everybody and help to support our mission as well. And again, if I really can ask one thing of you, it's to take action and do something great for yourself. Do something to help to optimize your sleep and show a little love to the people you care about. That's what it's really about. So sleepsmarterbook.com. Check it out today. Don't miss these giveaways because some stuff is limited quantity. We're giving away the Ease Magnesium as well.
Yeah, and how about that meeting?
Oh, yeah.
You can't
That's
do
secret.
a whole bunch of that.
They got to go to the site to check it out. All right, the secret superhero meeting. All right, so sleepsmarterbook.com, guys. All right, now let's go ahead and get to our special guest.
Oh, man.
Our guest today is the man, the myth, the legend, Abel James, who is a New York Times bestselling author and modern-day Renaissance man. For sure. He stars as a celebrity coach on an ABC television series and has been featured in People Magazine, Wired, and USA Today. As host of the #1 award-winning web series, Fat Burning Man, Abel has helped millions reclaim their health and perform at their best with cutting-edge science, outdoor workouts, and outrageously good food. True.
And great charm and good looks.
Abel is keynoted for federal government, lectured at Ivy League universities, and advised Fortune 500 companies, including Microsoft and Lockheed Martin. Also a songwriter and multi-talented instrumentalist, Abel has toured internationally and won several awards for vocal performance. Abel lives in Austin, Texas, and enjoys strong coffee and cheesecake, preferably together. Check him out at fatburningman.com. I'd like to welcome to the Model Health Show my friend Abel James. What's up, man?
Wow.
Shawn and Jade, thank you so much for having me back. This is going to be awesome.
We need some drums with this guy.
I can get down with that.
Dude.
A couple electric guitars to bring in. That was sweet.
Man, let me tell you. So you are our second three-peat guest. The first was our friend Pedram, who I just had him on, for his book, which was just incredible, man, The Urban Monk. So you guys check out that episode if you haven't already. And Pedram is actually who connected us initially. Was for him. So it's kind of fitting that you're here as another three-peat. So Michael Jordan had the two different three-peats. You're the second run, bro.
Thanks. Well, with Pedram, I'm in good company.
Absolutely. You're totally right, man. Well, recently, man, you got some really phenomenal news. New York Times bestselling author now, The Wild Diet, making some huge waves. And, dude, I just want to know, how does it feel right now to be Abel James?
It always feels the same to be Abel James, believe it or not. But it's awesome. The thing that really excites me is I'm always following these weird little adventures around. And sometimes it takes me on reality television or wherever. But the real reason that I do all this is not necessarily to preach to the choir, right? Because we've all been in our own little corners of the internet talking to people who really get nutrition and the science behind it, and we're really passionate about it. But the people who truly need this information right now are the ones, like you said, who are eating Egg McMuffins right now. And that's 99% of people. There are the enthusiasts, and I would count all of us kind of in that, and probably a lot of the listeners. But then there are the people who are sitting down watching television who might not ever think about eating or eating the right kinds of food that can nourish your body and completely turn your health around. Like, that very idea to them is insane and off the wall. And so sometimes we have to go out on a limb and come across as a little bit crazy by saying, no, you don't have to be afraid of butter. And, bacon, that's good stuff too. Maybe you can have a little bit of that. Don't worry about it. And freak them out a little bit, then get them onto the bandwagon. Hopefully they'll become those health enthusiasts down the road. And that's what we're starting to see is mainstream media, all of a sudden, all their heads are turning over to us because we've been doing this for years at this point. This is our true passion. Like you guys, we talked about this before. You guys are so real. We're doing this from the right place. It's coming straight from the heart, and people are really starting to get that, and they're getting awesome results. So I'm just stoked.
Yes, dude. And I just threw you a little curveball, too, because I was asking how it feels to be you, and that comes across in the show as well. Guys, you got to check it out because I know that it's going to be on demand and all that good stuff. But Abel's new show on ABC, well, it just wrapped, and wow. I haven't watched any reality shows, especially a weight loss show, ever, until, of course, with you and Drew Manning as well. and seeing this whole kind of thing unfold and some of the good parts of it. And of course, we're going to talk about some of the definitely, we'll just call them not the best parts of the experience. But I wanted to ask you about that specifically. You kind of just answered the question, which is, you know, you've been sort of counterculture, man, with the stuff that you've been bringing to the forefront and getting out to people. And I was wondering why you decided to do like major TV. And you just answered that to a significant degree. But what's the specific reason, like making that decision to go to major TV? Like what brought that idea about?
Yeah. The biggest reason I wanted to do it is because it seemed like a huge opportunity to get a new message out to people who really needed it. Yeah. And so I didn't go on the show to win a reality show or anything like that. In fact, it's kind of ridiculous that I would ever go on a show like that. When I was first approached, though, they got in touch through Twitter. It was a casting company, and they're just like, "You'd be perfect for this." I'm like, "This is a reality show. You got to be kidding me!" But they're basically like, "You know The Biggest Loser," and I'm like, "Yes, hate that show." And they're like, "Well, this is going to be ABC's response, and it's meant to be more positive, more inspirational, and focusing more on the nutrition side of things than the fitness side of things. And it's also people living their real lives. They're working their day jobs. They have families. They're not in some like weight loss camp or anything like that." I'm like, well, I guess that does sound a little bit more interesting, especially, you know, if you're comparing these different diets and seeing how people like them. And from the beginning, I could tell that they were trying to brand me as some extreme wacko fad diet or whatever. So being up against character assassination for, you know, like 7+ weeks of filming 12-hour days was definitely its own challenge. But I felt like, you know, I've been doing this long enough with the podcast and going on other podcasts and web TV shows and things like that. I really wanted to up level it and get to more people. And I knew that meant being subject to a lot of various attacks, which happen on reality TV. And, you know, they only show on TV 1/50th of what you film. So there are a lot of things that happen that never wind up on camera. But I just felt like it was a risk worth taking. And also I wanted to, all the people who we worked with had at least or around 100 pounds to lose. And, you know, for example, my client, Kurt, he started off 352 pounds on about a half dozen different prescription medications. His medical bills last year were $1.2 million. He never thought he'd be out of his hospital bed just a few months ago. And so working up close and personal with someone like that, this was a great opportunity to do that and also show them what's possible. So it's been a very enriching experience. And I think for the most part, even though it was reality TV, we're coming through as a positive influence.
Absolutely, man. So, and everybody, it's called My Diet is Better Than Yours, and you can check it out. Definitely, I'm sure they'll have it online as well, but I checked it out on demand via my AT&T service, you know, and had a good reason to finally use my nice TV that I have that, you know, we hardly ever watch. But this was really, it was really a lesson for me, you know, because I saw like half of an episode of The Biggest Loser, like 5-6 years ago, you know, and I just couldn't take it, man, because...
And that was enough.
Yeah, I mean, it's really disgusting, you know, this focus on beating people down for the purpose of weight loss. And really, that's what I picked up in between because I know you, and I also know what you're about. And the vibe of the show itself is more of a holistic look at things, you know.
It is,
and of course, you know, like you said, 150 of it, I sound like Mike Tyson, 150... I know when the hotline blinks, 1/50th of what you recorded showed up on camera. And I want to talk a little bit about that because what's most important is the other stuff, you know, and seeing that focus on weight loss still isolated in that show was still disturbing. You know, when we're talking about people losing like six pounds in a week and being disappointed, you know, versus I'm off my 6 medications. Right? And I'm able to actually get around and play with my kids, and my mind is clearer, and I'm making more money now, and I feel incredible. I'm not sick anymore, you know? And so how did you modulate and kind of find a way through all of that just intense focus on weight loss?
Yeah, and that was a challenge because, you know, when I was originally being cast on this show, I asked them, how are you going to measure this? And they said percentage weight loss, like The Biggest Loser. I'm like, you know, that's the wrong way to do it, right? Because if you're looking at true health, you want to make sure that you're maintaining muscle mass. you're focusing on fat loss. That's what people actually need to lose. And there are very specific things you can do to make sure that that happens. Other things like cutting calories, severe portion control combined with a lot of cardio, they may appear like they're working. They may appear like they're being successful. You can actually sacrifice your health in doing that. And that's one of the biggest reasons that, for a show like The Biggest Loser and for other extreme weight loss methods, you see these people regaining weight as soon as the cameras are off them and as soon as they're not in that weight loss camp anymore. And so that's something that's damaging to psychology. I think it's damaging to America, and anyone who's watching that is something that you would aspire to do, because you just wouldn't. You would never want to be in that situation. Yeah. So when I worked with Kurt on the show, I really wanted to demonstrate to people, this has been one of my mantras for a long time, you can be healthy and happy at the same time. Mm-hmm. In fact, by embracing happiness and health and nourishing your body and focusing on eating the right things and filling yourself up so that you're not hungry, you can get better results than if you're starving yourself and hungry and miserable all the time and you have trainers shouting at you. I also wanted to show people that while exercise and movement is absolutely important to overall health, it's not the best way to actually lose fat. When you combine, like most people do, they try to starve themselves and they try to exercise a lot. Right. That can lead to damaging outcomes. And so I think just by the function of Kurt being on the show and having so many medical issues, he had a fracture in his knee throughout the entire filming of the show. He had, and we can get into more of this later, but I mean, he's missing a lot of the muscles around his spine because he had a staph infection for more than 8 years that manifested throughout his body. He was in the hospital for 13 months. I mean, what he was coming from was absolutely insane. And there was no way he was going to get his health back through exercise because that wasn't really it wasn't an option for him. He's the oldest guy in the competition, 47 years old. So by getting in the kitchen, learning how to shop the right way, upgrading the quality of his foods, eating plenty of veggies, hydrating correctly, and just basically getting all the nutrition that he needs, he was able to get incredible results and turn into a completely different person. He looks 20, 30 years younger. Yeah. And yes, he lost 87 pounds in 14 weeks, which a lot of people will hear that and be like, that's super impressive or whatever. But more importantly, he lost fat. He lost almost double the fat of anyone else who was involved in the competition because he was focusing on food and he wasn't punishing himself with exercise. So I was stoked to see him get those results.
Right. And that's what's sustainable about it is the fact that, as you mentioned, a lot of people, and Jonathan Baylor, when he was on, I mentioned he was working with somebody who was a semifinalist on The Biggest Loser, and their metabolism was completely wrecked. They had lost all this weight very quickly, and now they're kind of in a state of learned helplessness because they I did so much and now the scale isn't budging, and I'm just putting weight back on. It's because they've damaged their metabolism, number one, by losing muscle, and muscle is really your body's fat-burning machinery, and as we start to kind of just stave off our muscle and lose our muscle through chronic cardio and also nutrient deprivation, you start to put yourself at a huge disadvantage long term because your metabolism is in fact slowing down now versus what you've done with Kurt, which is he's actually increased his ratio of lean muscle mass. And to the degree, it was clearly, far and away, he was the victor on the show. Should have been, but when you're looking just at that weight percentage, like you mentioned, it's really kind of misleading, So, and we'll see over the next 5 years, of course, what it looks like for somebody long term. And plus, what I really appreciate about you is creating that culture for him where it was okay for him to indulge, to enjoy himself, and having the happiness and the health at the same time versus some of the other contestants on the show. Like one lady was flipping out because her trainer gave her a cookie, right? But you helped to create that culture of saying, hey, look, really, and then showing with the results as well at the end of the day. And that was so impressive.
Well, that's truly a culture shift because the reality is we make the association that in order to be healthy, it's going to be hurtful and it's going to be horrible. And people are, in a way, choosing to be happy, but not realizing that that's not even close to the happiness you'll feel in wellness. I wonder how even your client approached the idea. We're talking 47 and already in pretty bad shape. How you even could get him to the starting point, which many times will keep people from trying.
That's right. And it's important to recognize for everyone who watched the show and everyone who's on the show, this is, it might look kind of like real life. And yes, they were still at home, they were working their jobs and the rest of it. But at the same time, there's a lot of accountability built in when you go half naked on national television every week and you step on a scale. So that's kind of like an unrealistic accountability factor that a lot of people who are watching might not recognize. Because they're just like, well, why didn't I lose 6 pounds a week or 16 pounds in a week or something like that? These people were very dedicated, every single one of them, and they were all cast on a show as well. You have to recognize that. But for Kurt specifically, where he was coming from was a place of basically, it was essentially his deathbed. He almost died a number of times from horrific things like having a blood clot in his lungs, breaking his neck, having that staph infection throughout his body, going septic, being on all these different medications. But the most damaging part of that for him was the fact that his grandbaby was born while he was in the hospital, and he wasn't able to even see his grandbaby because he was so sick. And that was just torture for him. Not only was he, essentially dying, but he also couldn't be there for his family. So for him, he never cared about the money or the competition. He wanted to get his health back, and he saw this as his last chance. And so from the very beginning, and of course, like pretty much none of this wound up on camera, but we made a promise to each other that his health would always come first. So I was amazed and really impressed that we were also winning the percentage weight loss. Like we were dominating the competition in that regard as well. And he was doing about half as much exercise. He was just focusing on, he wasn't counting calories. He wasn't doing the restriction that oftentimes you see. What we were actually focusing on was making sure he got his bone broth every day to make sure that his joints were lubricated and his inflammation was going down. We were healing his gut. He was getting his veggies every day to make sure that he was getting his micronutrients and his fiber, and also healing the gut and basically healing himself from the inside out. He was focusing on getting adequate amounts of high quality protein, which would fill him up and make sure that it was a muscle sparing experience. We combined that with just a little bit of strength training to make sure that he was keeping muscle in the right places. And that also he would be ready to ultimately finish a half marathon. So he was doing generally around like 30 to 60 minutes of walking a day with his wife or with his grandbabies out behind his house. Nothing crazy, certainly nothing like The Biggest Loser. And he was absolutely dedicated. He believed in himself. He thought I was a little bit crazy at the beginning, but you can see after it worked so well in the first week, he's like, all right, you got me for life.
Yes, and you can actually see on the other contestants' faces when he would talk about his experience with you, they were like, I want that.
Right.
I want to be with Abel,
I wonder how many were peeking over the curtain like, what did you do?
Also, you didn't mention the dietary fat, and making that something that was a go-to and okay. So talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, because I figure everyone who's listening has received that memo by now. But yes, the healthy fats are absolutely important. One of the things that surprised Kurt and surprised a lot of people at the beginning is that, I was focusing on omega-3 fats, but they might have heard of that before. They never really thought about, industrial oils being rancid or something like that. But basically all the processed food that they were eating was packed with that junk. And so it was a combination of getting too many bad fats and not enough good fats. So I had Kurt focus on getting wild-caught fish. He was taking fish oil or omega supplements every single day to make sure that his brain was functioning the right way. We were also focusing on, instead of, he would try to eat diet foods. He would try to eat margarine and those fake butters and things like that. I'm like, get rid of all of that junk. We cleaned out all of his cabinets, his entire fridge, stocked it up with pastured grass-fed butter, with extra virgin coconut oil, with olive oil, with avocados, with coconut. So we were eating quite a bit of healthy fats. And that was something that surprised a lot of the other teams because they were busy eating fruits and eating whole grains and a lot of the other things that you think might be healthy coming from, conventional wisdom. Right. But when you learn a little bit more about the way the body works, aren't necessarily great when you're trying to lose fat and when you're trying to heal your metabolism. Because one of the biggest differentiators with Kurt compared to the other contestants is he was truly avoiding sugar. And now they were avoiding a lot of the added sugars and things like that, but they would still eat fruit. They would still eat a lot of grains in some cases. And so for Kurt, he was basically focusing on getting the right kinds of fats as well, which was something that a lot of them were missing out on too.
Yeah, yeah. So this was really the big draw of the wild diet, you know, and making it so that it's okay to enjoy eating. You've got so much great stuff that you get to have. And it just really brings to mind this important takeaway I want everybody to have, that challenges are necessary, but suffering is optional.
That's right.
You don't have to suffer your way to weight loss. You don't have to suffer your way to having the body that you want. And we have to change our thinking when it comes to that, because you can love your body and still focus on making it better. You know, you can do both at the same time. And also the stuff that you're giving to yourself, open yourself up to this new paradigm and understand what we've been exposed to in modern day culture is like the same 7 foods, like packaged different ways, like wheat, different versions, corn, soy, milk, chicken, 17 different ways. And like, I think oranges, you know what I'm saying? But there are literally thousands of other foods that you have access to in many cases, especially in our world today where we're all kind of world citizens. You know, of course, we want to focus on other things like eating locally, eating things that are in season. These are the little extra small players in this whole equation, but just understand challenges are necessary, but suffering is optional.
I love that.
And one of the things I want to ask you about, just to kind of drive this point home and talk a little bit more about it, is this weight loss versus fat loss paradigm. You know, one of the things that was pretty substantially clear was that Kurt lost the greatest amount of actual body fat, you know, versus just losing weight. You know, so where could that weight loss be coming from when somebody's just losing weight? And what do we really want to focus on? What's the big difference here?
It's a great question. And this is one of the biggest reasons that I don't like people to obsess with a scale. I always say, despite the fact that I was on a weight loss show, like ignore the scale. It's not that useful of a metric. It's something that's like shorthand for people can say, they can kind of rationalize that they're getting progress if it's going down, but it's not necessarily accurate because what you're measuring is literally your weight. And you are not just made up of fat, right? At least most people aren't, right? You're made up of a whole bunch of different things, but most importantly, muscle. And of course, water, which can be manipulated. You see that in a lot of cases with sports competitions, when people are, you know, trying to make weight for fighting matches, things like that. Tim Ferriss talks about, you know, going up and down 20 pounds in a night. None of that stuff is healthy at all. So, you know, you can lose 20 pounds overnight, but you might die, right? Like that also happens for physique competitors. Every once in a while you hear of a bodybuilder doing that and dying. It's horrible for you. So number one, you don't want it, like water weight is a real thing. And at the beginning of weight loss, it's something that skews the numbers upward. And we were benefiting from that, all of us, in the first week. So you hear someone like Kurt, who's 6'5", by the way, losing 16 pounds in the first week. One of the biggest reasons for that is that his inflammation is going down. Anytime you have inflammation, you're also storing extra water. Anytime you have, when you're stacked up with glycogen in your muscles from eating a lot of carbs like he was basically topped off all the time. That also comes with water. So you're starting to release that. So you're losing water. But over the course of time, if you're reducing your calories, if you're focusing on severe portion control, if you're not getting enough protein specifically, in a lot of cases you go catabolic, especially when you combine that with exercising a lot, when you do a lot of cardio and you're not really focused on doing the right strength-based work, you lose muscle. And so when you watch Kurt from the beginning, he's starting at 52% body fat.
Incredible. And
what I want to do from the very beginning is get him fat adapted so that he's burning fat. Hence the name of my show, Fat Burning Man, you know, tongue in cheek or whatever. But I literally believe in this stuff, that there's a specific way of eating and training that will allow you to become fat adapted. There's a lot of science that shows that it works. And it really works when you stay away from sugar and you don't go overboard with grains and other carbs like that. So for him, I wanted to make sure that he was fat adapted. When you lose fat that way, basically your body is using your stored body fat for energy in a way that's fundamentally distinct from someone who has still been sourcing a lot of their energy from carbs. So they're sugar burning, right? They're going out and they're exercising a lot, but you're burning sugar, you're going catabolic. So Kurt started at 52% body fat. By the end of the competition, he was less than 30% body fat. So more than a 22 percentage point difference. Now, Jasmine, who lost slightly more percentage body weight, She started at 47% body fat and ended higher than Kurt at 34% body fat. So she only lost 13 percentage points body fat. And then some of the other contestants lost about 8% body fat. But their numbers, their weight loss numbers were still pretty big. What that means is that they were under eating, overtraining, and losing muscle. And this happens across the board. You could be a competitive athlete. It happened to me. I have a blog post. One of the first blog posts I ever had that went viral was comparing my body and my body composition when I was training for marathons and doing excessive amounts of cardio. And I was eating a lot too, but I was basically sugar burning, to really dialing that back down to focusing on sprints. And I gained about like 10 pounds back of lean mass and got a lot more definition because of a reduction in cortisol. You get that healthy muscle back. But in a lot of cases, if you don't know how to train your body to become fat adapted and burn fat preferentially, then you might sacrifice burning muscle. And that's basically the worst thing that you can do for your health.
Absolutely, man. You laid it out pretty clear there. And I hope that, again, this audience, as you know, is pretty educated in this, but just to drive that point home for maybe even some new listeners who have been fascinated with their scale, and understanding like literally this could just be a modulation of water, and it's psychologically torturing you when you just stop that and focus on getting healthy and eating the right foods and allowing your body to become more of a fat burner versus a sugar burner. Is just going to put you in an ideal state. And plus, that really kind of hallmark benefit in what Kurt saw was that sustaining and the increase of lean body mass, which is ultimately going to propel, because what happens is basically like a snowball effect. As he started to have more muscle tissue versus fat tissue, it just started to compile on itself. It became exponential to the degree that he lost, 22% body fat, right? That's crazy in that amount of time.
Then he becomes more of this 80% lean person that can burn a greater amount of.
And that's why he looks so young now, is because his body composition is awesome. He didn't just, you can see on camera that the body composition of everyone by the finale has changed fundamentally. They all, have had great success in losing weight, but you can see that the quality of weight loss is different throughout the different contestants. And Jasmine started out with great big muscular thighs at the beginning of the competition. She, was already in great shape when we first started filming. But over the course of time, she switched basically from weightlifting to running. And so by the end, you see that she has very small legs, which is the same thing that happened to me. I lost a lot of my thigh muscles. But when you lose that, all of a sudden, you have to eat less because your metabolism has suffered because it doesn't have nearly as much. But just to your point of not focusing on the scale at all as a metric of success, the thing that I was really excited to see in Kurt's face when he told me, is that he every single week was losing inches from his waist, and his clothes were fitting in a completely different way. And so, most guys don't call me for fashion advice or whatever. They don't call me when they're out shopping, but every once in a while he'd be like, I'm getting new pants, man. I started at 48. Now I'm at 40. By the end of the show, by the end of filming, he was, I think he's wearing like 34, 36, which is absolutely insane to go from 48, these enormous clown pants is what he calls them, all the way down to looking nice and trim and muscular up top. He still has a little ways to go, but I mean, he looks 20 years younger. He looks like a completely different person. And he feels that energy too. And that's just so impressive for people to see. I think, a lot of people who have been injured or who have gotten older or have had something happen to them, like an accident, it's hard to come back from a massive injury or a massive surgery or an illness. But I hope that him coming back like he did and showing other people that it's possible will help convince them that it is possible and that they can do it too, especially just by focusing on real food.
Absolutely,
That's very
man.
exciting.
And
people they have a lot of extra flesh and skin when they lose a lot of weight. Does the fat burning approach give you more of a structured body after a large amount of weight loss?
Yeah, it's a great question. People still will have extra skin when they lose. Kurt at this point has lost almost 100 pounds. And so, you still have extra skin. That can get better over time, especially if you're reducing inflammation. And it's really something that varies person to person. And one of the biggest things to take away from it is that if you're starting from a place where you're kind of shaped round, it's different from starting where Kurt was. Like when you saw him, he had the most damaging type of fat. It was all surrounding his organs. It was like this big, hard beach ball coming out of his gut. That's where most of his fat was. It was visceral fat. Right. Now, when you're talking about other kinds of fat, it might be subcutaneous, so it's beneath the skin. But when you're talking about health, the visceral fat that's surrounding all of your organs is the stuff you have to get rid of as quickly as you possibly can. So, so for Kurt, it was important to get fat adapted. And then we also experimented a little bit with intermittent fasting, which, you know, people like Mark Sisson, who are, I think he's 62 at this point. It's something that he enjoys, and it can actually help you as you age to regulate your hormones in a different way. As long as you're eating the right foods when you're hungry, then combining it with some of these more ancestral health-based principles can really be helpful for a lot of people.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. A lot of people actually have asked me over the years about the skin issue, because what's so amazing is that so many people who've, you know, listened to both of our shows have lost just a tremendous amount of weight, and now they're dealing with this other issue, you know, because they've gotten healthier. And what I've seen clinically is that when the weight loss is done at I'm not going to say normal, it's not the right word, but just a gradual pace, and your body's able to adapt, your skin is able to kind of come with you a little bit versus doing something that's a little bit more intense. And also doing things specifically for skin health, you know, looking at, like you mentioned earlier, the bone broth, for example, all of the components there that are beneficial to your skin, the collagen and whatnot. And also, you know, massage is a great thing, self-massage, putting the right stuff onto your skin as well, you know, as the process goes on. Instead of slathering yourself up with like Vicky Secrets, you know, and smelling like, you know, blueberry button blossoms, whatever these weird colors or flavors.
I'm wearing that right now.
You know, I knew it. But, you know, utilizing coconut oil or, you know, real shea butter. And so things like that as well. And, you know, giving your skin some love and seeing yourself differently, you know, seeing the skin changing. But it's a little bit difficult because your skin is your outermost organ, and it's the largest organ that we have. And it's a big part of your nervous system. And it gets damaged through the kind of nervous system intensity that it's exposed to over time. And it's a little bit of a tough thing, you know, for your skin, you know, but you just turn the corner as you're showing your overall health some more love, show your skin some love as well.
I love that. What's with the love for the bone broth?
There's a South American proverb that says a good broth can raise the dead. It's something that's been, I can vouch for that too. It's something that's been used traditionally. It was the way that we made soups. It was basically the base of something that we were eating, if not daily, then multiple times a week. One of the reasons it's so important is because you're eating nose to tail. You're getting collagen, and you're getting a lot of minerals that are otherwise difficult to source, things like phosphorus, magnesium, calcium. A lot of these things are coming out of the bones, coming out of the marrow in some cases, which could also be a source of healthy fat and a lot of other vitamins and minerals. These things, when you're getting them into your body every single day, it adds up over time. It makes you feel so much better in a way that's hard to describe. But I remember when I first started, I was out hiking a lot, and I was still, you know, I'm still quite active, and I love to do that. But every once in a while, you know, I feel a little bit inflamed. I feel some like creaky bones or things kind of not being all that loose. When we first started focusing on getting bone broth pretty much every day, all of a sudden you feel like all your joints are lubricated. You can feel that your inflammation is going down. And one of the most important things to do, especially when you're taking someone who's not necessarily coming from a place of health, when they're eating a lot of processed foods, is get that bone broth in there because it can help heal your gut, which is basically, and Shawn talks a lot about this, there is a powerful connection between your gut and your brain. So it can help self-regulate your hormones in a lot of cases, your neurotransmitters, and that's something that's really important and not talked about enough. But I could just rave about bone broth all day.
Yeah, and by the way, guys, right now, New York Times bestselling book, The Bone Broth Diet. And this is something, you know, she's actually has the same publisher, Dr. Kellyanne's Bone Broth Diet. So if people are more interested in that, I think it would be a great resource for people to check out. And maybe you just inspired me to have her on. Have you talked with her yet?
I haven't yet, but I'd love to. It's you know what? There are bone broth diets that are bestsellers. Kerrygold grass-fed butter is selling out in stores across America. I'm very encouraged by what's going on. It's pretty cool.
It's very, and again, I just want to thank you, man, because changing the paradigm of what's possible, with Kurt being in the situation that he was in, and for people, like you mentioned earlier, giving up, and thinking that they're kind of a lost cause. I know I felt like that just 2.5 years of, having a so-called incurable condition with my spine. I thought it was a wrap, and I needed examples. I needed to get to that place where I knew that something else was possible. And so you're doing that for the public at large with this, man. So huge props for that. And that's what I want to talk about next, too, is the psychological side of things.
Yeah.
On the show, and this is kind of the stuff that makes my stomach turn, that doesn't feel good, is seeing how, in ways, some of the trainers were even embarrassing their contestant, their client. And, there was a scene where one of the ladies who was just getting on my nerves. But it's a TV, it's like they flare it up. I'm sure she wasn't that inflammatory, but she was having her contestant put a dress on, her wedding dress on, that she couldn't even remotely fit into, and just like this huge struggle. And she's like, "Are you serious?" And it's like, you're embarrassing her in front of millions of people. And what is that doing for you? Versus what you did, you literally decided to embarrass yourself with Kurt and put on a bacon outfit to go and exercise with him. Tell us about that.
So true story. First time I ever saw myself on TV, I was sprinting in a full body, head to toe bacon costume. It was they were promoting this show a lot before the new year, and we don't have a TV. So we were in a hotel, and I saw it just pop up on TV, and you see, like, they don't show us any screenings ahead of time. Like, the first time I see it is the first time everyone's seeing it. So I'm like, oh my Lord. But, one of the things that's really important, and I learned this, I used to lead outdoor adventure trips when I was in college for a lot of incoming freshmen at Dartmouth. And so one of the things that we always did when they were first coming in is make ourselves look really silly, really ridiculous, just make huge fools out of ourselves, because that someone who's coming off a bus or getting out of their parents' car, who's never been to college before, who's never been out they've never pooped in the woods before, they've never done any of this stuff before. They're super embarrassed, they're super timid, and it's the beginning of their journey. And so one of the ways that we always made them feel comfortable is just being so silly and not taking ourselves seriously and making huge fools of ourselves. And so I just thought that would be a nice opportunity for Kurt, because he's, deep down, he's got a big heart. He's a total goofball. And I didn't want to come off as this, like celebrity trainer who knows everything and is going to, shove all this information down his throat. I'm like, no, I'm a real dude. I'm going to be real with you. I'm going to look ridiculous on national TV just to prove the point that you can have fun with this. You don't have to take it too seriously. Yeah. And I'm here with you, man. And I'm not talking at you. I'm talking with you. I'm trying to figure your life out and meet you in the middle to, because I'm not going to go out there and say that bacon cheeseburgers are the biggest health food that everyone's missing out on. What I will tell you, and what I think hopefully people take away from the show, is that Kurt is definitely a bacon cheeseburger kind of guy, Yeah. And that's something that he would never give up. Like, you look at some of the other things that are on the show, which is like a vegan program where you're juicing for the first week, no solid food. He would never survive on something like that. You need to make sure that you're meeting people halfway. I know that there are certain things that I love, like cheesecake every once in a while, and pumpkin pie during the holidays, and other very luxurious, indulgent things. And I wanted the focus to be always positive, not negative. Yeah. And so sometimes you have to take one for the team, go on TV and dress up like bacon. But I think it was worth it. And I was glad to see that most people saw it as kind of a goofy thing that made them giggle a little bit.
Well, you certainly make friends when you're bacon.
Yeah,
who doesn't love
bacon? What's shaking bacon?
Right.
So yeah, and I just saw that, that psychological support. I think he really had the edge in this whole kind of weird competition, because he felt important. He felt supported. He felt like he mattered in a weird way. Like, that's the kind of things that I was picking up, and he was excited about sharing as well. Yeah. And he kind of had this light that you really didn't see, not at all on the other people, but not as much, and it was a consistent thing, and just speaks volumes of, your approach to things. And so really quick before we wrap things up, The Wild Diet, New York Times bestselling book now. congratulations, man.
More
super,
drums.
super proud of you and happy for you. I mean, it's just, that's so cool, man. Let people
Thank
know
you
where
so
they
much.
can pick up the book and get connected with you and all that good stuff.
And the
Yeah,
bacon
so
soup.
the book, The Wild Diet, is it was out of stock while the show was airing on Amazon, which was crazy. But now it's pretty much back in stock at pretty much anywhere you can buy books, as well as Amazon. You can also go to wilddietbook.com, find it there. But as always, if you like podcasts, I have the Fat Burning Man podcast. Shawn has been on it before. You're coming on again. Going to be awesome. So check out Fat Burning Man. Also, fatburningman.com. We have tons of recipes and other good stuff, free stuff. So check that out too.
Awesome, man. Well, I just want to say this yet again. I'm so happy for you, and I appreciate you so much for doing something that, you know, I know that it initially is probably like, what? That's not my thing, you know?
Yes,
but
it was.
to
like
get
that.
outside of your comfort zone and really show what's possible through real health, through actually caring about yourself and through relationships, you know, really building strong relationships and pointing people to what's most important, which is your health. You know, the scale is not the thing to be focused on. You'll get results on the scale, I promise you that, but more so focus on making yourself healthy and feeling good and eating real food, you know, and that's what your message really is. And I just thank you for getting
gonna
that
be
out
life-changer.
to the public at large, because yes, you're changing the game, man. So just appreciate you, man.
Thank you both. We're on the same team, that's for sure. So thanks so much for having me on.
Absolutely, man. My pleasure. Well, everybody, thank you so much for tuning into the show. I hope that you got a lot of value out of this today and took away some really important nuggets and a call to action to stop paying attention to that scale. I just saw somebody on Instagram the other day just like break out a sledgehammer and hit that bad boy,
Yes.
you know, and shatter the scale. Right. And just understand, you know, that's one metric. What we want to pay more attention to is your waste management. And as Abel mentioned earlier, that visceral fat, you know, that organ fat that's just clogging up. And actually, this stuff starts to become sort of like another organ where you're producing more fat storing type hormones, you know. And so you can manufacture both. You can manufacture a body that is more of a fat burner or a body that is more of a fat storer, you know, if it may. And so just understand you have this opportunity to do all this stuff. And it's really about you paying attention to what matters most. So minding your waste management. Hey, if you can, check out what your body fat percentage is. You know, you could do that pretty much at any gym. You know, there's some fancy, there's the DEXA. You could do some water submersion and get real fancy. There's different ways of going about it, but use that as more of a barometer of change because muscle takes up less space than fat. You know, it's really that simple. So you can be crushing it. Your body's changing. You could even take a look at the pictures by doing a side-by-side of yourself. I highly encourage people to do that. Take a picture. Picture's worth 1,000 words. And take a look 2 weeks from now. But if the scale only says 2 pounds, hey, if you change physically and like your clothes are fitting better, you're moving in the right direction. Your body's giving you feedback. And I want to encourage you to pay attention to that feedback versus what the scale might say. All right. So thanks so much for tuning into the show. Have an amazing day, and I'll talk with you soon.